Hey everyone, you asked for a eyeshadow makeup tutorial and that's what we're doing here. So to start off, there are a few things that you're going to need, particularly that I'm going to be using in this video if you want to follow along. First of all, make sure to moisturize your face. I just did all of that, so that's already done. Secondly, you're going to need concealer. This is, to me, a kind of an important part of the eyeshadow process, but you'll see why later. And of course you'll need your eyeshadows, makeup brushes, whatever you'd like. You're gonna need your beauty blender, wetted down and rained out. Just like I showed you before. I have a tiny one too. It's to kind of get in these little corners, but I'll show all of you guys that in a minute. So let's hop into the video. Alright, so for step one, what I always like to do is I use my concealer as my eyeshadow primer. If you've never used an eyeshadow primer before, you need to. It makes the whole difference between whether your eyeshadow looks flawless or looks muddy. Also, it helps it stay on a lot better. I was using regular eyeshadow primers, but I started using concealer and it's a lot better. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. I just put it on my hand. Take your beauty blender. Get it nice and evenly on there just so it's not like a big gob. Excuse me. You're gonna go in right on your eyelids. I always like to use the excess for underneath. And when you're patting, don't push super hard. That you can really irritate your eye, and plus you really don't need to push in super hard. Just light little pats. Make sure to get into your inner corner. I always just stick it right there because I have a nice little zit that is refusing to go away, but we're gonna put more concealer on later. So it's not a huge deal if you're someone with under eye circles like me and it's not covering everything like that, don't worry about it because we're gonna go in with it again. I'll show you guys why. So make sure that that's all even. You don't have any lines, creases. It's all nice and even. Then we're going to go in and apply our base color. This is the way you're going to be setting your eye to make sure that all of your makeup that you build on top of it doesn't look muddy, doesn't smudge. It all just blends really nicely. You're going to want to pick something that's close to your skin color. I usually choose a tiny bit darker. Don't be afraid to mix colors. I'm actually going to mix colors of what I'm showing you right now. We're going to be mixing a few colors to make that shade. So the brush I always like to use, it's a flat, medium shadow brush. It's a little bit wider. It's like thin and it's wide on the sides. This way you can like really just pat it all in. You can use a fluffy brush like this if you want to. I prefer to use a shadow brush. It just kind of makes it go on a little bit better. A little bit more seamless. I find with the shadow brush or with the blending brushes, it kind of can make it sometimes a little bit creasy, I guess. So we're going to start with the beauty palette I'm going to be using is Tartelette. It's one of my favorites. If you guys ever try it, it's awesome. You'll like it. So we're going to go in with, let's see, I'm going to go in with Supermom and a little bit of Force of Nature. So we're going to go in with this color and this color. Always tap off whenever you take a color, otherwise you're going to have a lot of fallout and it's going to be a lot more product on your eye than you need. You really don't need that much. So we're going to take it and we're just going to pat it all over the lid, all the way up to your brows. You don't have to go right in here, but just enough. I need a little bit more. Now we're going to do the other eye. Now we're going to go in with our first crease shade. And we're going to build off of that. I'm not going to go super dark with you guys because I like to wear my eyeshadow a lot darker than most people would. So I'm going to kind of rein in a little bit just to help you guys out. So I'm going to go in. You want to go in with a crease shadow that's close to the same tone that you put for your base colors. You don't want to start off with something super bright. You definitely can. Just probably more down the road when you're a little bit more comfortable with building up crease shades. But I always like to start like as a base with something that's, try this again so it's not shining a shit ton. Something a little bit like this. This is called Natural Beauty. Just a little bit darker than the two that we mixed. Tap it off. Now, when you're doing your crease shade, how you hold your brush is really important. The amount of pressure you put on your eye is really important. It's actually almost more important than actually the motion you use on your eye. So when you hold your brush, you're gonna be holding it back here, very light. And when you touch your eye, you're gonna be barely touching it. Like, you don't wanna push it in, otherwise you're gonna have this muddy spot that is gonna take forever to blend out, and it's gonna be really annoying to work with. So little goes a long way. Light pressure. You're gonna start off with just little circles on the outside, and then you're gonna just sweep to the center. Now remember, this is gonna be your lighter crease shade. So if you go a little bit further in than you want to, it's not a big deal, because this is the lightest one. This is the one that we can kind of play with a little bit more. I always pull my eyeshadow out a little bit. That's just me. You don't have to. Very light pressure, sweeping back and forth. Alright, so you can keep doing that. Remember, tapping off. That's what I'm doing down here. I'm tapping off on the side of my chair. It's probably all over the floor. Oh well. Circular motions. Really gentle. Nothing crazy. Don't stab your eye. It's not necessary. I really like this technique because you can use the same color and keep building and building and building. And it looks like you actually end up putting another darker color on it, and you really didn't. You're just building and building to the point where you get the depth that you want, which is what I really like about this technique. So now you're going to do the same thing to the other eye. Oh, I'm shaky. Too much coffee. Little circles. Keeping a really light hand. Another reason why you want to keep a light hand is we'll run into that later on, which reason why I'm saying this is I've done it so many times. If you press too hard, that's where you will notice. Like, if you ever put on eyeshadow and all of a sudden it's like running down the side of your face, like you're underneath for some reason, you're like, but my eyes aren't watering. It's because there was too heavy of a hand in the beginning and they got irritated and they run. Ever since I learned that and I learned this trick, I haven't had that problem. Well, within reason. Like, sometimes it happens, but those are on like super humid days or And now everybody likes to do their eyeshadow a little bit differently. Me personally, I'll do one step with one eye and then I'll do the same exact thing to the next eye. It just kind of keeps a little easier for me to keep track. Sometimes I have like 6 different crease colors going on, and if I don't do it that way, I won't remember the exact order I put them in, which it can make a difference depending on how bright the colors are. I don't really usually go that bright, but as soon as you get more comfortable with it, you'll figure out your own way of doing things. This is just how I do it. It kind of helps me keep track a little bit better. And that looks pretty good. Alright, so now we're going to take the same brush. I always rub it right here, like super light again, don't stab it in there, just to getting like little excess off. And then you're going to blend out this line. Really light hand, little circles. This is still like weird. Like I still blend out differently every time. You can, if it's more comfortable for you, just do little sweeps. I honestly do all the techniques. Like, there are some days where I'll just literally do this. Most of the time it's little circles, but sometimes, especially with this outer line, it's a little bit harsher than most. So I usually just like very lightly sweep it around. Over to the other side. When in doubt, blend out. See a harsh line? Blend it out. There, that's the first base color is blended. Now we're going to go into with the same brush to our next darkest shade. What I like to do is take a little bit of the color we just used and then bump it up with another color that's quite a bit darker, because with this particular palette they're not really giving me a whole lot of option, like it jumps quite a bit. So I'm gonna take, let's see, I'm gonna do a little bit of this, like 2 strokes and then 1 stroke, just so it's not super dark. We're gonna see how that goes. I change my eyeshadow so often I can't remember. It's never the same. Every day it's different. Yeah, that'll be good. So same thing, if you don't have a color or you jump from really like more lighter to really dark, go ahead and mix. Just tap off. It's okay, you're allowed to mix colors. So same thing with your darker crease color. You're gonna come in right here, little circles, really light hand. Especially with these darker colors, you do not want to press super hard. Not until you get more comfortable with it, and even then, probably not going to press super hard. And just sweep across. I always like to keep it more up here because I like having a little bit of light right there. Like where it's lighter, I think it makes my eyes look bigger. You don't want to do that. You don't have to do that. I'm just showing you what I do. Everyone does their own thing. And no one's wrong. You do you, boo-boo. Same thing on the other side. Light hand, little circles. If you're like me and you want to create that bigger look, I'm going to do my eyebrows too, so at the end it'll kind of all make sense. I usually do my eyebrows first, but I just didn't think about it. It wasn't the main focus of the video. And if you need to go back to the other eye and touch something up, say if you like did this eye, then you go over to this eye and you realize that you liked how you did this eye more than you did this eye, just go back. Go back and play. We're all stuck in our houses. We all have time to do this. Well, not all of us, but most of us. Alright. Brush it off on your arm. When I'm done, my whole arm is like, it looks like Colton abuses me. It's just eyeshadow. I really need to start wiping that off before I leave the house. Alright, so another big thing that I do, I know a lot of other people do it too, but this is just how I do it. I really don't ever wear eyeliner, like actual pencil eyeliner. It's not really my thing. It's all eyeshadow. I'll wear winged eyeliner, like liquid eyeliner, but no, it's always eyeshadow. So how you do that is, usually my first crease color I won't do this with, but you take your same brush, you go back into the same exact formula we just used for our second crease color, take the brush and smush it like that. Sorry, I'm gonna look at my mirror down here. I was trying to look in the camera. It's a little harder. So you're just gonna squeeze this, kind of make it flat like a fan, and then you're gonna take it down. Same thing, really light. This is where you really want a light hand. Don't stab it in. Little sweeps, it'll get on there just fine, especially if you're using something like I'm using. Like Tarte is really pigmented. You don't need to push super hard. It'll do the work for you. See? And you get a little bit of eyeshadow. What I like to do, go back. Yep, see? Just did it. Just did it to myself. I do it all the time. I have an angry eye for like the whole rest of the day. Alright. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other eye. Starting to water. Ah! Dang it. Oh well. It'll hold out for this video, so that's the main thing. Alright, this looks really funny right now. Promise. It's all part of the process. It is. Alright, so now we're going to go into our final crease color. Oh, just kidding. Really quick, before we do that, blend this out after sweeping it off on your arm. Blend it out. Alright, so now I'm going to go in with a smaller crease brush. You can see the difference, quite a big difference. These larger ones are always really great for putting down like your kind of your base creases. This is usually the one I always use if I want to do something a tiny bit darker. I want to be a little bit more precise in where I put it. But you guys don't have to do this step if you don't want to. Like I said, I just personally like it. I like to add a tiny bit more depth to my crease. You can go ahead and stop at this point if you want to, and then just skip ahead to where the final touch is, which is really what kind of I need to do if I ever do my eyeshadow. So it's an essential part. But I'm going to go into the darker shade that we mixed with our crease shade, which is Dreamer. It's not getting on there. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to just strictly, if you do, I like to just stick out here and go in a little bit. You don't have to do as much as we did. With this depth, I always like to keep it right inside of here to make it really look like your eye is bigger, to give it that depth. I have my palette like literally sitting on top of a box. It was just easier. Especially since the palettes have like really big mirrors. Love Tarte. Love Tarte. I have 2 of their palettes. Another thing is, your eyes are never going to look exactly the same. It doesn't happen. I've been doing it for a long time, and my eyes they're never going to be perfect. Just get them as close as you can. There are even like makeup gurus I follow that say the exact same thing. Like, you're always going to have one eye that's going to cooperate and be like super awesome, and the other eye's just like, no, I don't feel like it today. That just happens. So you're going to take your big fluffy brush. Sorry, I'm talking. You take a big fluffy brush again. You're going to blend out. When in doubt, blend everything out. Okay. Alright, we're going to take a little brush again. Go back into that darker color. We're going to pinch it. I never usually take my outer darker one all the way into here. I feel like it can close off your eye. Sometime if you're going for like that smoky, I'm gonna go out to the club look, it'll work, but I personally don't for every day. Sorry, I'm being perfectionist. Alright, so you take this same brush with the excess, not tapping off what was left over. I usually go back in with my original crease shade with the same brush, and I go right like lower. Alright, so now we're gonna go back in with our concealer, and we're gonna use it to pretty much cut along right where I want my eyeshadow to be. This is the nicest little trick, especially if like you didn't tap off all the time or the eyeshadow just wasn't the greatest quality and it did end up having a lot of fallout. It's a really easy way. If you do have a lot of fallout, take something like a tissue and kind of like try and get the majority of it off, or even just take like a makeup wipe and get it off, and then that'll be better, because sometimes it might make it a little bit muddy with the concealer mixed with that. So same thing, back of my hand, I'm using the e.l.f. 16 hour. Shocker. Shocker. Alright. Nice and even. We're gonna just go in just like this. I'm not gonna worry about getting too hard into here because I have my little guy for this, but you're just gonna go, you don't want to go right up to your eye because you want to create this line of almost like you applied it that way. So I always like pinch it so it's kind of like narrower, and go really slow. Go a little bit at a time. You don't have to do this super fast. Always look to make sure you didn't go higher up with one side than the other. Usually I had already done my eyebrows at this point because mine are quite expressive, so I try to take this arch out as much as I can and I make them a little bit longer. So my guideline is always I go up to like where my eyebrow would be, like maybe like this far away from my eyebrow, just so I have a good indication of like how I want the curve to be going. But if you want just kind of overall, like you have your cheekbone, which is like right here, and then right on top, like where your eye socket is, I always just go right along there. And that way it keeps it even on both sides, because your bones are going to be pretty symmetrical for the most part. Alright. Now I'm gonna hop off really quick. Alright everyone, so this is the final look. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that all of you were successful if you were doing this along with me. Any more questions, just comment below. Any videos you'd want to see on how I do pretty much anything resulting in makeup, even hair, just let me know. And have a good day. Stay safe.